Hi everyone, I'm Les.
And I'm Ashley.
And you're listening to Anthropotamus, where we explore some of your favorite anthropology topics.
Hey everyone, today we are discussing Arctic Magnus by Pierre Deleage. The Anthropology of a Delusion, and wow, what do we say about this book?
Well, there was a lot of delusion in it.
There was definitely a lot of delusion.
Not to say anything bad about the author, he just collected a lot of the information and assembled this wonderful. I'm not sure what else.
Biography.
To call it. Yeah, biography. This journey.
Wow.
This journey.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I do have mixed feelings about this book. Something about the order in which the information was presented threw me off.
It did feel like it was a bit jumpy.
It was. There are definitely some memorable parts in this book.
So we should also introduce the third guest that we have in the room. This is my wife, Brittany Teens.
Hi. So Brittany helped us do a little review before this podcast, so we thought we'd have her join us today. Man, I don't even know where. It's okay. Let's just say it's not a bad book.
It was worth reading.
It's like 100 pages long. You can easily get through this. There are some very interesting highlights to this man's life.
What were your thoughts on the book, Brittany? Just the brief portion, the excerpt that you went through. What were your thoughts?
Just wow.
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
So here's my first impression when I first began this first few pages. So the book is about Emile. Okay, so let's just start by saying this. I cannot pronounce most of the names in this book. I have never once studied French.
Yeah, same.
Yes.
I've studied Spanish and I can barely pronounce names in Spanish.
I have studied Spanish, Arabic, Farsi. Who knows whatever languages I've studied, not French. And so this book is about Emile Petitot. Did I say that right? I don't know if I said that right.
I believe it was Emile Petitot.
Okay. That actually sounds very good. Good job on that. And he went out to the Arctic. He was a priest, studied the Dene. So it starts off with him on this train, going to, I don't know, a mission. Would you call it a mission?
Yeah, I would say it was.
He was on his way to his mission, and I guess he's discussing about, he's talking to this young girl, and this young girl is flirting with him, and how they think he's rich because he has a pocket watch or some crap like that.
Sounds like delusion right there.
There's some delusion right there, and it just made me think of, the guys that run into you on the bus station, who you just happen to politely smile and say hi, and all of a sudden they think you're flirting with them and have a delusion that all of a sudden you're interested in them. And so when I'm reading this, I'm thinking, this is like 2 pages into the book, and I'm thinking, this guy is full of himself.
Oh yeah, there's some narcissism going on there.
Just some, yeah.
I'm a master of understanding.
Okay. So yes, definitely. You start reading this book and you're like, wow, this priest is full of himself. But it just keeps going from there and just keeps getting worse. Goes straight into the hints. Would I call it a hint of homosexuality? I would not call it a hint of homosexuality. This
broad strokes of homosexuality for sure.
Priest was definitely crushing on one of the Dene men. So I do think this man acknowledged that the priest had a crush on him. I don't know, is crush the right word? I don't know. I feel like crush is
some infatuation.
There was some. There we go. Infatuation. I like that word better. And I almost felt like he was okay with it. Maybe
woke people.
Woke people. Wow, you just used woke. But yeah, and I really just kind of feel like that his realization that he's homosexual, but in a time and in a position where homosexuality was looked down upon, especially as a priest, encouraged his belief that he needed to punish himself, which, going further into the book, we definitely see him punishing himself and going a little mad.
Yeah.
Well, where do I go from there?
Well, I mean, we don't want to jump right into the best part, I guess.
Yes, I'm trying to avoid the best part of this book.
Let's talk a little bit about why he kept going back. He went back a number of times, and each time he got worse.
Yeah.
And then,
mentally, as in he became mentally worse.
Yeah, he was sliding into his delusions. There was a fair bit of paranoia, right?
A fair bit, yeah. A fair bit would be an understatement. I would say a lot. Lots.
A lot of paranoia going on there. And just how he perceived the world.
Basically thinking that everybody was after him.
Yeah, in relation specifically to anti-Semitism, I think.
I would say more than. I mean, it was coming from both sides. He really thought both the tribes and the priests were coming at him. And
well, let's talk about why he thought that the Dene people were. Was it that they were the descendants of the?
Yes. So he came up with this idea that these must be descendants of the lost tribe. Which
these people live in the Arctic, correct?
Yes. So North America.
So the lost tribe. What's a lost tribe?
So we're referring to Judaism, Israel, and at this time, and he discusses also about how there were others who were trying to make this connection, right? And I mean, now we know about we have this theory of people migrating from Asia over the land bridge into America, and there is this belief that the Jews had come from the Middle East or Asia to North America, and that's where these tribes descended from. And he really had this biased belief where he was trying to just grab hold of any evidence he could find to support this theory, and really he didn't have any evidence.
It's a clear example of confirmation bias right there,
right.
too.
Right.
He had an idea that he wanted to find evidence to fulfill, and that's exactly what he did. He was looking specifically for that information. It's pretty clear that as you go through the book, he's tailoring the information that he's drawing in to fit his narrative.
And then combine this with his Arctic madness. I guess what the author brings up is very common, especially in wintertime, even in the native females who go into this madness, which he was experiencing, the paranoia. He was going into this idea that him and one of his colleagues were the Antichrist, was the resurrection of Christ and the Antichrist, going back and forth about who was which. And so basically, I guess what I was trying to say is he has this theory that he's trying to prove, grabbing on hold to strings here, while at the same time going crazy. And it just it just goes.
Well, it definitely relates to his own homophobia that was there, instilled in him because of his religious beliefs and his society. The person that he had, he was infatuated with, just being the object of either his salvation or his damnation, definitely kind of refocused the duality of his delusions. It was a very vicious cycle for him.
Yeah,
seems like.
And they discussed about how he would leave and he would get better and they would come back. And this whole time I'm thinking, why do you keep sending this man back to the Arctic? He obviously is not doing okay there. But
good point. Why would you continue to send somebody back?
He had a love. He had a love for it, I think, for these tribes and their and he does mention, and I'll probably discuss this further on later, but how he obviously had a lot of biases. He was crazy. But he did a lot of work that provided information and knowledge on the tribe's language and creating resources to their way of life and their mythologies and whatnot. And I might be going off topic here, but it made me think about how we learn often is in the past. Yes, museums in the past had preserved these artifacts or documented these people's lives while at the same time destroying a culture, and having very negative impacts. So, I mean, it was just a reminder. Yes, we may have these materials from these anthropologists and these researchers and scientists, but at what cost?
Well, that also sort of leans into the whole issue there. And one of the things that you'll see just a lot with the authors of these ethnographies, anthropologists, is that, you know, they'll go out and they'll visit this other culture and they'll learn everything they can about them. And, you know, you'll see it a lot in epigraphs and, you know, other things like that they really just fall in love with the culture, right? And, you know, that's where the idea of culture shock comes from. And it's not so much an idea as a reality. Once you start to disassociate yourself from your own culture and associate yourself with a culture that you can never belong to, it, you know, a lot of people, it just really rocks the way you view the world, which can't have helped his delusions.
Right. And I think especially in a time period where, I mean, now we have this, I don't know, well, some of us, not all of us, right? We still have this struggle within our society where accepting other people's perspectives, but I think other perspectives are more broadly acknowledged and accepted now, but at that time period, if you're not one of us, then you must be converted into one of us. Mm-hmm. So he's falling in love with this culture that he's being told is wrong.
Which again does kind of play into the way his delusions developed. I mean, he was definitely, you know, infatuated with at least two different men in the book, and you know, his ideas about what was right and what was wrong as far as sexuality goes really played into his delusions and caused him some major harm.
Severe harm.
Yeah, so I think it's a good time to really dive into the.
Wow.
I don't want to make it too
graphic.
Too graphic, but yeah, into the.
Right. So going back into him trying to prove that the Dene were part of the lost tribe. You know, we know that circumcision is a well-known practice, Judaic practice. And he really, I mean, his obsession with circumcision was extremely unhealthy, to say the least. I don't know how else to word it. I mean,
we can word it like this. There was a line that said he still had a little corona left.
Oh, wow.
So it was a little unhealthy.
So let's just say he circumcised himself more than once. I'm not...
So just as a note, I'm pretty sure that you can only circumcise yourself once, but I'm not a doctor and I am not I'm not Jewish either. So if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me.
I guess if you only circumcise a small piece of it, and save the rest
little by little.
Later, I don't.
A lifelong circumcision.
Oh, so. You know, he circumcised himself more than once, and it got to the point where I'm reading the book, and I'm like, well, what is there left to circumcise?
So I think we could also talk about, like, how he got to the idea that they were circumcised, and it was saying that he was thinking of their words, and he probably mistranslated it.
Thank you.
And did it on purpose. They were probably talking about cutting off the umbilical cord. And the words were very closely linked, and he decided to latch on to the whole circumcision aspect, and because of his confirmation bias.
Exactly right there, confirmation bias. It was very easy for him to, we'll just say misinterpret.
I don't think it was easy to misinterpret. I think he purposely misinterpreted to support his theory.
That's confirmation bias. Whether or not he understood that it was the umbilical cord they were talking about or not, he was definitely wanting it to be circumcision. Yeah. So he I think he said they said in the book that he interpreted it as code so that others around them wouldn't know what they were talking about. So that again, more delusion, a lot of paranoia there, like they were trying to keep it secret, and then there was an aspect of I want to say gatekeeping, but I'm not sure if that's the right word. We were reading through it, and it's like, well, are you like us, or he's not like us? Why isn't he doing what he needs to do? And that was.
And I don't know if I really want to go further into that,
No?
because I almost feel like we're going to take away too much of the book from if people want to read it.
Oh, good point. Good point. So we don't want to dive too heavily into it, but there was definitely something worth reading. I recommend reading it as a group. And we had my wife Brittany read through a small excerpt of it before we actually started the recording just a little bit ago here. And oh man, we had a riot of a time. It was
and not to say that we were laughing because the book was bad. It was just so outrageous and so crazy the things he was doing that we just.
It was horrific.
It was horrific.
Also,
hard to believe.
Yeah, it was outlandishly hard to believe, and I'll say that. And with all seriousness, I could not wrap my head around the idea of that kind of self mutilation to a point where it was just like we couldn't do anything but find a way to laugh off that energy. It was, like I said, it was a fun time reading it with the group because you can look at that and say, "Wow, this is weird. What is going on here?" Whereas when I was reading it alone, I'll be full disclosure, I had to skim through this part. It was very, it felt macabre.
It also probably helps that I can't pronounce a lot of these French names. So I was using fillers to make it more readable, so that might have contributed. So if you struggle with French names,
read it for everybody else.
Yeah, I definitely skimmed the names when I was reading through this because I cannot pronounce any of these names.
We found at the beginning of this podcast that I have an uncanny knack for pronouncing names.
That is true. You did a very good job pronouncing his name because I could not. I couldn't say it right. But yeah, but I would don't read this alone. Read this.
Don't read this alone. Read this as a group. Discuss it. Try to understand a little bit about, I probably shouldn't say that, but yeah, discuss it with others for sure. It's probably going to help you understand the human mind better. Just by understanding what went,
I don't know if that helped me understand the human mind better. I felt very confused trying to understand what he was going through, but I'm not delusional. At least I hope I'm not.
Would a delusional person say that they're not delusional? Who knows?
I don't know. I hope I'm not delusional.
I learned something. I just don't know what it was.
I learned that I certainly don't want to have a second circumcision. So
or third or fourth. Let's just say that there came to a point where he was asking people. Oh, God, I don't even want to. You know what? I'm not going to say anything else. Read the book.
We'll cut that part out.
Read the book. Get into a group. Read it out loud together. It's 100 pages.
It'll be very quick.
You know what? Have a few drinks to get. I don't drink. If you drink, though, get in a group. Drink and read the book out loud.
That would probably be a riot.
That would probably be an amazing night, honestly. Any other thoughts? I don't want to go into too much because I want people to read this book together.
So as you can tell, we all definitely enjoyed it, but again, we enjoyed it more as a group than on our own. It's a lot is going on there. There's some parts that are tragic, some parts that are very intriguing, and other parts that are just, bizarre, right? So it'll hold your interest. It'll hold your interest, and just having a group dynamic to discuss it will, definitely increase that the enjoyment. And this is coming from the minds of 3 Americans, not French citizens who are reading this in a translation. So I don't know, maybe the original in French is a little bit different. Maybe it's better. If you have any comments, do feel free to reach out to us and let us know what you think about it.
So once again, we were discussing Arctic Madness, the Anthropology of Delusion by Pierre Deleage.
Deleage.
Deleage. That's how you spell his last name. Arctic Madness. Please, as Les said, please feel free to head over to our Instagram page or Twitter to leave a comment, and we will definitely get back to you. Thank you all for listening. Please continue to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Anthropotamus for our latest episodes, show notes, and book discussion schedule.